Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with UK Jazz Keyboardist, producer, and composer Oli Silk. He opened up about his latest 2020 CD called Six and his life in music. He made his debut at the Catalina Island JazzTrax Festival, and later that year he was named a Debut Artist of the Year. Along with a great name, he's got a grand story. Enjoy. I think the most rogue thing that we can do right now is talk about music and not worry about the pandemic. So,
yeah, that sounds good to me, brother.
Thanks for taking a minute out. I appreciate it.
Yeah, not at all.
Well, hey, your new album, Six, talk to me a little bit about, you know, it's a weird pandemic time. What's your thoughts on having material out during a pandemic when you can't actually back it up live, but people can listen to it? Kind of your thoughts.
Yeah, my thoughts are that it's definitely frustrating after speaking to a lot of my peers and contemporaries and fellow musicians as well. We're all feeling it. That it's definitely been an unprecedented release in that respect. Not being able to come to the States, which is, you know, something I would always do with a new record. That's really it's really sad. I've tried to keep optimistic and keep a stiff upper lip, as they say over here, and get on, but yeah, I'm definitely missing the live arena. The release itself was okay in the end. There was a little bit of a wobble because we got the release date before the lockdown happened, so everything, you know, as soon as the lockdown date was given over here, I rang my record label and said, you know, what's the score over in the States, and they said, okay, well, we've just spoken to the distributor and they're happy to release the album, but they can't release it into stores at the moment because they're concerned that, of course, the stores, you know, they may stock up with products and then they may go bust. At the time, you know, it seemed like, you know, they were being very careful, but, you know, with good reason, and they don't want to lose their stock, so they're not going to put any physical copies out there. And I said, well, where does that leave us? And first the label was saying that, okay, we're going to think the best thing to do is delay all releases until 2021, which, you know, that was pretty devastating because I've obviously been working so hard on this record for 3 years that, you know, I didn't want to just shelve it for a year. That would have been really heartbreaking. So I pushed a little bit. You know, I obviously their decision is final. I pushed a little bit and said, well, you know, I'm okay with it just being a release, you know, online, just being a release into iTunes and all other streaming services, and then is there a way that they can get it to Amazon, your physical copies just to Amazon for now? And sure enough, that's what happened in the end. So all the releases with that label, Trippin' in Rhythm Records, just physically available through Amazon and not the stores. But like I said, it's actually worked out okay, I think.
You know, the one thing I noticed in your bio is that you had some time with someone from Kansas City, Julian Vaughn.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've hung out with Julian a lot. Yeah, you guys hung out before?
No, you know, I interviewed him a little while back, and he was a great cat, and he actually really pulls great crowds and does a lot of stuff here. So yeah, he's a cool cat.
He's a really cool cat. Yeah, we first worked together in Dubai, of all places, in the Middle East. We were doing the jazz festival out there, and he'd only just signed to my label, and because my label was overseeing this jazz festival, they got him on board. And yeah, we really clicked. I thought he was a really cool dude, fabulous musician, of course, really lovely feel, really just exactly my type of musician, I think, in that respect, just a really great soul and feel to his playing. And yeah, we've kind of been buddies ever since. He played on a #1 record of mine in 2013, and I played on one of his a couple of years ago. So he's a good dude.
So what do you like the best about being a musician?
What do I like best about being? Wow, that's a tough one. Well, you know, it's been different at different stages in my life being a professional musician. I think probably in the last in the last 10 years, I think the best part of being a musician has to be the show, the gig, being on stage, and immediately after being on stage as well, the high of that, and meeting everybody after the show and signing CDs and all sorts, all that kind of stuff. That's great. I do love the travel as well, even though it can be grueling sometimes. Generally, I do it on my own. I come over to the States and I figure out all my tours myself, logistics and things. Occasionally, I get a rope a buddy in from over here to come over with me, but in general, I'm traveling alone. So that's quite tough, but very rewarding as well.
We're in this time right now where there's no live music, and I know musicians are just getting stir crazy. Are there any like magical moments on stage? Any shows, festivals, something that you're like, that's kind of been in your head that's kind of kept you afloat?
There's been a few. I think there's a festival that we do on an island just off of Spain called Mallorca, which we do once a year, the Mallorca Jazz Festival, which is just a beautiful, picturesque backdrop to a jazz festival. And obviously that's been a casualty of the situation, which is very sad, because that was in early May. So actually that was like one of the first things that had to be shelved, and we'd already started working towards it. So that was very sad. But yeah, we've kind of, as a group of musicians that are in the house band there, we've been sharing photographs and videos of previous years, just to keep ourselves sane and happy, and hopefully optimistic in the knowledge that it will happen as usual next year.
Let's say tonight you have a dream and you run into your younger self around the time that you started making music and started doing professional gigs. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Don't be so lazy. Don't be so lazy. I was very lazy when I was in my 20s. And it's unfortunate. I spent a few years in the wilderness there, and when I should have been hustling, I think. So that would be my piece of advice.
Nice. So what was one of the first live jazz shows you ever saw that made you think, man, that's something I want to do someday?
Let me think. Yeah, I mean, I saw a few in my teens. I mean, when I was in my teens, I wasn't that much into so much jazz. At that time, which was about 94 to 97, that was very much, like dance music had swept across this entire nation. Everything was all about nightclubs and festivals, and so I got swept along with all that as a teenager. So I was very much into my dance music. And that's really how I cut my teeth as a producer. I used to make dance music vinyls, and had a modicum of success with that as a teenager, which was cool. But jazz-wise, I think it was, I'm trying to think, there was one particular, it may not have been my sort of first major jazz concert, but when Bob James came over, and we saw him play up in Manchester, which is about 300 miles north of here. I'm sure you know Manchester. And Bob James came over with Chuck Loeb on guitar and Dave McMurray on saxophone. And yeah, that pretty much blew me away. That was pretty awesome. Obviously, I had been a big fan of Bob James for most of my young life, and to actually see him do his thing and hear Chuck Loeb for the first time as well, for all my family, that was the first time we'd known about Chuck. So I think that was probably one of the most pivotal musical moments that I saw.
We're going to get back to live music. COVID-19 is going to come to an end. We will hit the stage, and then we'll be in the crowd. What do you hope both fan and musician realizes from this absence away from live music?
Probably similar things. I think for the fans, it's got to be that, where possible, always just keep supporting live music. I think a lot of times the internet and the accessibility to watch music rather than go out and see music live, I think maybe that had taken a bit of a dent on the industry, especially our industry. But I think maybe this will make the fans realize just how important, not just from a musical standpoint, from a social standpoint as well, live music is, even if it's just on a very local level, and even if it's not smooth jazz, if it's just your local band at a bar or something like that, And I think for musicians, it's got to be the fact. This is such an unprecedented time. Obviously, I just don't think everyone thought their gigs would stop. Would just stop like that, in the blink of an eye. So I think it would probably be not to take them for granted.
Everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your fans, but you're the one living your life. Who do you think you are?
Who do I think I am? I think I'm an increasingly mellow, coming on middle-aged man who thinks he's still 21, but I think that's normal.
Yeah.
And I think I'm someone who is not a perfectionist musically. I'm surround myself with a lot of perfectionists, but I'm definitely not one of them. I'm definitely quite a fly-by-night kind of, sometimes a maverick producer and maker of music, and that can be a good and bad thing, obviously. I think I'm very concerned with trends, with musical trends, and just keeping my finger on the pulse of what may be happening in a production sense, like I say, musical popular trends, just to try and keep my music from stagnating.
It's a great answer, man. Hey, thank you for getting back with me. This was definitely a gem in the rough that was unexpected.
Yeah, man, not at all. It's my pleasure.
Thanks for listening and tuning into another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in the UK, America, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Oli for his time, music, and stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.